Share a bit more about the history for those who don't know, just some of the highlights of this rich history of Black entrepreneurship here in Durham. It's an incredible place to be, and we're standing on the shoulders of some giants as we do this work. So talk a little bit more about that. I know that's a passion.
Yeah, well, Durham has enjoyed the reputation of being known as the Black Wall Street, and largely because of the large number of Black businesses that we saw come of age and develop within the heart of the city. You know, along Paris Street, you primarily had Black-owned businesses along that street. Then along Main Street, it was predominantly white businesses. So in our downtown, we've always had this kind of dual economy, but also a lot of interaction between the two. And when you look at the founding of North Carolina Mutual, that was founded in 1898, and it was chartered by the state of North Carolina in 1899 by John Merrick, Dr. Aaron McDuffie Moore, and eventually Charles Clinton Spalding. They were the triumvirate that really were instrumental in so many other businesses that happened in Durham, from Mechanics and Farmers Bank to even North Carolina Central. It was really about 7 of these guys, and James E. Shepard was one of these founders initially in the first phase of the development of NC Mutual. And a number of them went on to do other things, but these were the folks that were like the bedrock members of the community that went on to create the Hayti community, which was more of the residential kind of community right over the tracks on the south side. And it also had a retail center that ran along Pettigrew Street, and everything that you could imagine that we needed, we had there, from, you know, a newspaper, movie theaters, donut shop, hotel, radio stations, shoe repair shops, everything. Of course, this was a segregated time, and you must have everything that you needed. And I think even when we look at things today, we can learn a lot from out of that necessity. We created our own services, and we have to think about doing that again. Sure. So those were some of the individuals, but the interesting thing to keep in mind is that John Merrick had a close relationship with Washington Duke and the Duke family that went on to be the American Tobacco and eventually Duke University, and he was their personal barber. He had 6 barbershops, and 3 of those only served white customers. All of the barbers were Black. 3 only served white customers, and the Dukes were some of his prized relationships. And so John Merrick was able to build and create a connection that he was then able to leverage into his community and just do phenomenal things. So that's part of that connection. So that Washington Duke and John Merrick relationship was instrumental in Durham. Even though we were divided, there were still ways that we could connect behind the scenes.
Right, well, and the work has to happen together for it to be ultimately effective, right? We can't be doing this without each other. I'd love to hear you expand a little bit more on now, how is Provident 1898 carrying this torch? Right, we've talked about this lead up and this legacy, but what does it look like for Provident to carry this legacy forward and play its role in the ecosystem here in Durham and beyond?
Yeah, well, I think first you have to preserve the space. You have to raise a flag and say, this history is valuable enough that it should be preserved. Peter led the effort to allow us to get historic landmark status for this property.
Yeah, that's great.
And I mean, that was a phenomenal effort on his part. So it's now a historic landmark thanks to the work that we did together, but really under Peter's leadership. And then secondly, you have to reinvest. We put over $14 million of new investment in this entire building just to preserve it, right?
Wow.
Then we had to create a space with programming. I've gone to a number of places where you walk in and you know that you were not thought about when they pulled the operation together. Not that you were excluded, you were just not thought about. What we're doing with Provident is to make sure that when you walk into our space, you know that we intentionally are trying to speak to a diverse and inclusive community, one that really represents what Durham is. Durham has no racial majority. So our spaces and our businesses should feel that way. Here you will see art by artists of color, Muslim Americans, African American artists, female, male, you name it. You'll see that we're, remembering the contribution of Merrick Moore and Spalding by branding our conference rooms.
Yes.
That gives us an opportunity to do some storytelling. You'll walk into the lounge and see the Royal ice cream sign that people think we're serving ice cream.
Right.
But we're not. We're serving history.
Right.
We're serving the fact that in 1957, we had our first sit-in, not in Greensboro, but in Durham, North Carolina, not very far from where this building
Durham's
sits.
always been a leader.
Always been a leader.
Yeah.
So even thanks to you, Justin, the music that you hear when you walk into the space speaks to a diverse and inclusive community. So I think that first, holding space, creating this ecosystem to let everybody know that they are included and we welcome them into the community. It's a community that is representative of Durham. Right. That's what was necessary, and a lot of money and a lot of time. Peter can tell you, we started this business, right after a gas explosion.
Right.
That's right. So Provident has been through quite a few ups and downs, as our community and nation have in the first 2 years of coming up on 2 years of our operation.
Yes.
But it seems like the work is even more important now.
Carl Webb Peter Cvelich, thank you. Thanks for bringing me into this beautiful work. And for everybody who is interested in learning more, go to Provident1898.com. That's Provident1898, the numbers.com. And we look forward to having you as a part of our community.